Okay. Uh, so first thing come is like how to approach the LLD question. How to approach. So let's say you got a problem statement in the interview. Design something. Design XYZ something. Anything they can ask you to design, right? Any real time problem, right? It could be a real time object. So elevator, right? Vending machine, ATM machine. These are all the real time objects which you see. Then e-commerce website, design Zomato, design Swiggy, design Book My Show. These are all this one, right? Then you can get a management system, right? And so there are different categories of LLD, right? So you can get a question in any of the category, right? So now whenever you get the problem, so what are the steps you need to follow to reach before you start to the coding, right? So first thing is you need to clarify and analyze the requirement, like DSA. So DSA, what is important? I think everybody is much familiar with the DSA, right? In the interview question, we always first analyze the use cases, right? Without use cases, if you go, you are gone in the interview itself. So this is very important. Similarly, in the LLD has a similar life cycle. So first you have to start with analyze the requirement. This is why it is very important, because let's say they have given you a design Book My Show, right? So here in the analysis, right, what you have to find is find the flow. You have to find the flow. Okay, so now with the interviewer, just say that okay, this is a user come to the portal, right? From the portal he will get a list of movies in his city, okay, from this city. So now you are making a flow. You are getting like, okay, whatever in the mind of the interviewer, you are trying to take it out. When he said that design Book My Show, he doesn't tell you the flow. So your first job is to analyze the requirement from the interviewer. So interviewer is your client. Consider interviewer is your client, and now you are trying to fetch the requirement. Ask him, right? So okay, this is the movie. Then what do you want? Like from the movie, you will get a, now I selected this movie. Now you will get a shows, 12 p.m. shows, 1 p.m. shows, 6 p.m. shows. After that, you will select a show. You will get a seat booking. After that, a payment, and then it's done. So I have clarified the requirement. If any changes he wants in the flow itself, we can update the flow itself, right? So first is find the flow in the analyze phase. Second thing is define the scope. Define the scope. What do you mean by define the scope, right? So see, Book My Show is huge, right? And in 40 minutes we can't complete the whole Book My Show, design the whole Book My Show. That is totally not possible, right? So what we have to define is, okay, the flow is, now we know this is a happy flow. Now we have, in the second step, we have to define the scope. So define the scope means the method which you are going to implement or going to support in your LLD. So my scope is user need to search the movie theater. So this is one requirement. Second is he should be able to book it, right? And third requirement is, let's say, notification. So this I am okay. So this only thing I am going to build it up. But Book My Show has so many things else also which I might know and I might not be able to interested. So let's say Book My Show also has some flows. So this is let's say movie theater, physical theater, right? So if somebody goes there and book a ticket, so Book My Show also keep in sync with that okay, it will update its ticket also. So now the scope is this online itself, so I haven't included this in the scope. So what I mean to say is, during the analysis itself, you have to get the flow from the interviewer, define the scope, what you are going to build out in your LLD question in next 40 minutes, right? So now let's say you need one search method, you need one book method, and some notification. So now I am going to support only these three, or let's say you come up with 4-5 based on this. And after this point, stop it and ask the interviewer, are you okay with it, right? So are you okay with the requirement fetching part? If that is okay, then we can go to the next part. Any doubt till this point, guys? Any doubt till this point? The first step, what we have to do when we get a question?
No.
Okay,
No.
cool. So now you have got the requirement. Now what second thing you have to do is you have to list down the object. You have to list down the objects. So what does it means is now you have the flow ready. Now go from the flow. Now see what all objects you see. Okay, I see user. You have written down, okay, user is one object. Then you see the portal, book my show portal, book my show portal, right? So this would be one class, right? So then you see movies. So just route down that movies, then theater, then shows, then seat. So you are just going with the flow, and each step of the flow you are taking out that these are the objects which I am seeing, right? So this is the second step. At this step also you have to clarify with the interviewer that these are all the objects which I can see. Are you okay? This is very critical point. Like if you missed any important object, right, and you have started the design, right, and later interviewer says that where is that object, right? Now you have to change the whole design because relationship might change, right? So this is a critical step, that identify all the objects and confirm from the interviewer that are you okay with it? I have identified all the objects, right? So once he said yes, I am good with it. So always consider again interviewer as a client. So you have to keep it interviewer at each step, right? It's an iterative process. It's not like we build it once, give it to the client, and then he will check, then it will come to us. No, it's a repetitive cycle. So we do one thing, we ask him, are you okay? Now next step, we do one thing, now we ask him. At any point, interviewer or you can say client raise a concern, we have to improve this thing. So after second step, you have defined the object. Now we have everything from the interviewer. Now it's all on a developer point of view. So third thing you have to do is come up with a relationship. Come up with the relationship. Okay, so in the relationship, I think there are two types of relationship: is the relationship and has a relationship, right? So anybody who is doing a LLD, so he should be aware of these two types of relationship. So what is the relationship, right? So is the relationship is nothing but an inheritance, right? So you have let's say duck. So you have multiple kind of duck. Let's say wild duck, pet duck, some other duck. So these all wild duck is a duck. This is a duck, right? So this is a relationship, nothing but an inheritance. Has a means you have one object, you have another object. So inside this object, any of the object, let's say object 1 has object 2, its object, it is keeping its object. So means it has, right? So let's say you have a school and then you have a class. So school has class. So school has class object, or maybe list of class. So there are many classes. So it has a list of class. So it has a. So are you clear with what is the relationship, has a relationship? This is very, very important if you are doing an LLD. Like this is, you can say that the basic or prerequisite which we should know. Anybody, any has doubt with this?
I have one small doubt.
Yes.
Like you mentioned the duck example, right? So in case, what if we do not know what could be the subclasses? Like you mentioned the wild duck and other one, right? And we do not know those types at that time. So what should we do? How should we approach this?
Okay, so you are saying you don't. Okay, that's pretty much okay. So that's a valid question, that at the same point when we are coming up with an object, right, we might know what are the sub objects we can do. So that's so to answer your question, right, I will come to your point at the step 4 and 5. But it's a valid question, like But basic thing is, do you understand what is a and has a,
Yes.
right? So anybody has concern with this, or I will proceed further? Okay, so no comment means no doubts. Okay, so now we have come up with the relationship, right? So at the step 2 we have come up with all the objects. Now all the objects we have just defined the relationship, okay, from the flow. So coming up in relationship will help us what? The flow. So now if you see that this is book my show, right? So there are list of movies. So list of movies, okay, it will contain. So list of movies will have a theater, let's say. So okay, movies has theater, right? Okay, theater has seats, theater has a screen. Okay, so now this flow itself will help you to create a relationship. And also this will come with the practice itself. Once you start doing some question, you will get to know, okay, this is the relationship. So after the step 3, what we have to do is, now we have come up with the relationship, we have come up with all the objects. Now we have to you can say that optimize our solution. Whatever the design which we have come up with at 3, that is just, you can say, it's a brute force approach. That's how we do in the DSA, right? We come up first a brute force approach. That is nothing. Relationship which we have come up with is nothing but a brute force approach, like direct. Okay, this is user, so this is book my show has user, book my show has movie, this has this. So I just come up with a relationship. Okay, now this relationship holds good. Now I just need to little bit optimize it. And how can I optimize this? Using solid principle. Solid principle plus design pattern, if we can apply, or we know like, okay, this design pattern I can use. Okay, so now you know that at which step solid principle and design pattern comes into the picture. But before solid principle, these 3 steps you should know it. Like, even if you learn solid principle very well, even if you learn design patterns very well, but if you are not good with the 1 or 2 and 3 before the 3rd step, like in your DSA question, if you directly solve it with the efficient approach without knowing the brute force approach and its complexity, interviewer might not be happy, right? So always go step by step how you have come up with this design. So understand the flow, keep it like the scope, define the scope, come up with an object, define a basic relationship. Now we will enhance this our relationship with the solid and design pattern, right? Now to answer the question which has been asked previously, like how do we know whether it has a child or not, that comes here at this part, at this one. Analyze the requirement. Now if you see that, you have to ask many more questions. Let's say theater. If you are going to create only theaters, right, you can't create sub objects, right? But I can, if I ask properly questions, right? Okay, do we have a theater type? Okay, theater can be public theater and private theater. Private theater also. Then you know, right? Okay, now it is the relationship. Now okay, we have to build a is the relationship here. So you have to ask it, right? So here if you see now we have a seat. If you just ask that, okay, seat is there, but if you go one level deep and ask a question with the interviewer, like, do we have a different type of seats? Interviewer say yes, we have a different type of seat, like a normal seat, or and might be in different theater we might have a kind of inclined seat, incliner, right? So we have a different type of seat. So these are like all kind of is the relationship. So you understood, like, how do we get to know that it has a child relationship? We have to take out from the interviewer. We have to ask that. We know that we have a seat object. So during an object clarification, we know that we have a seat object. But for each object, you just try to look from the generalized perspective that, okay, in future, is it has the scope to extend? So see, one of the very basic principle of LLD is your code should be scalable. This is the very much priority for anything. Then here comes the other part is it should be readable, understandable. different thing. But the major priority of LLD is it should be scalable. And how come your code becomes scalable is if you first identify the scope, objects, and ask the question, okay, the seat is there today. Can we have a normal seat only, or it has a future scope to scale also? Yeah, interview said yes, yes, it has a scalable. In future we can have incliner also, some other sofa also we can give, right? So that's okay. It means it's a scalable. So means it is a relationship, right? Similarly, we can go theater. We can enhance it, right? So user also, in user we have a admin, we have kind of members, something normal users also. So I hope it will answer your question, like how you will come up, like which object can be scalable. So interval will help you to identify. Once you have identified the object, now you just have to see that which object has the scope for scaling. Seat has the scope for scaling, theater has the scope for scaling, user has the scope for scaling. What all thing we can have for scaling? So ask the question. Till now we are good. Any questions? Any question, guys?
No, sir. No.
Okay. So now with that said, like we know the steps, right? So today I will tell you the solid principles, right? What is solid principle and all. But I want, like, if you are doing an LLD and if you are jumping into an LLD, so you have to first get an habit of this first three steps, right? So never miss this thing. Analyze the requirement, list down the object, and then the relationship, come up with a relationship. Okay, so always go with the step by step, and at the last we have a solid principles, right? So now I am going with the solid principles. Please stop me if anybody has doubts, right? Okay, so first thing in the solid principle is, and it is also known as OOPS principles. If you know whether you are doing code in Java or C++ or Python, this is applicable, right? So first thing is S. What is S? Anybody can tell?
Single function, like
Correct.
Single responsibility.
single
A class should have single responsibility.
Correct.
Single responsibility to change.
Yeah, single response. So it should have only one reason to change, right? So now what does it mean by one reason to change, right? So see, in the solid principle, right, if you make any code change, you will design anything. Let's say you have designed this thing, you will get 100 comments that, okay, it breaks this principle, it breaks this principle, right? So first we need to clarify ourselves, like apart from the definition, where all we can improve it, right? So now in the single responsibility, what the single responsibility says that a class should have single reason to change. For example, like I have let's say a user. So my class, this user class, will maintain all this user related activities. So add user, delete user, update user. So but if you think that it should have only one reason to change, means only add, if I create add user class, that is wrong. You will get into a, you can say that, class explosion use case. So there is a concept called class explosion, right? So with the LLD, it is a very common problem that we try to define, we try to, you can say that, optimize our code so much that we will jump and we will bring this into a class explosion. We created so many classes that our code become unmanageable. So we have to be very, very careful that what does each principle means. So in the single responsibility of a user, so I can say that, okay, for me, add, delete, update of the user are a kind of a single responsibility. So this class has a single responsibility of managing the user. But from somebody else's point of view, add user is one class. It is doing only one responsibility of adding the user. He can create another, delete user. It doing a single responsibility, single reason to change is delete. right? So from different perspective, user can come up with a different definition of single responsibility, this thing. So now let's say, think from your, let's say we are in Amazon and you are a very high level, you are a director or VP. From a VP, let's say under his hierarchy, it's AWS, Amazon AWS, e-commerce, right? Prime Music, something else, right? So now in this case, from the VP perspective, this is one responsibility, this is one responsibility, this is one responsibility, and maybe another responsibility. He doesn't care, like यहाँ पे हमारे कितना कुछ ऑपरेशंस है, इट डजंट केयर, वीपी डजंट केयर, AWS इज वन रेस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी, राइट? अब यहाँ पे AWS के अंदर का जो इसका मैनेजर है, नाउ द मैनेजर ऑफ AWS, फॉर दिस इट कैन फर्दर डिवाइड इनटू मल्टीपल थिंग. सो मेरा कहने का क्या मतलब है सिंगल रेस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी से, फ्रॉम विच परसेप्टिव यू आर लुकिंग. इफ यू आर लुकिंग फ्रॉम द आई ऑफ अ VP, AWS is nothing but a single responsibility. If you are looking an eye from a manager, manager is taking care of two teams inside the AWS, let's say subscription, right? Let's say some scaling or DB scaling of AWS. Let's say I'm just coming with a random, but all are under AWS only. So these are single responsibility. Now if you are a developer of this one, for this you might have a different this thing. So now what does single responsibility is? Again, there is no single answer like, okay, this is what do you mean by single responsibility. It depends upon how big project you are creating, right? In the interview, we are not definitely going to build the everything. So in the interview, definitely we are at this level, we are trying to build something at this level, right? So we are going to divide the single responsibility. But what I wanted to tell you that it depends upon how big project you are doing, and based on that single responsibility has different meaning. You got it right, what I mean to say. AWS e-commerce whole is a single responsibility from an eye of VP. So this is going to take care of all AWS. So this is single responsibility, right? So similarly, in the way user, when I'm building a user class, for me these are all single operation, add, delete, update. But from some other point of view, they can also create a different class for add user, delete user, right? But we have to be very cautious that we do not jump into the class explosion scenario. Let's say there are non-stop operation can come in. Today we have three operation and we create a different class, and in future this class become extensible, like from this 3 jump move it to the 100, 3 से 100 हो गए ऑपरेशन. So are you going to create 100 classes just for managing the user, right? So other way could be you can group some, okay, these are one group, you can do. So I hope you understand what is single responsibility. Single responsibility is different. So when we say that it has one reason to change, that has different meaning from different perspective. So for easiness in the interviewer, you can always have like this, okay, user, so all user related tasks I can keep in this class, right? So if you are creating a movie, so all movie related, add, CRUD operation, create, read, update, delete, you can put into the movie class. This is also be a single responsibility. You don't have to create a single operations different class. So everybody is clear with this S, single responsibility principle? Any doubt?
No, sir.
Okay, cool. If there is any doubt, let me know. So once we are clear with the single responsibility, now let's jump to the open, O. Okay, so O means open, closed, right? Open, closed, what? Open for extension, closed for modification. What does it mean? ठीक है, इसका देखो क्या मतलब है. If anybody has problem with Hindi, please let me know. I'll just switch it. Sometime during example I come switch the language. Okay, so open means open for extension. अब देखो यहाँ पे क्या होता है कि मान के चलो आपके पास एक क्लास है, right? You have a class. you have written 10 methods, fully tested, fully UT. You have written the UT, you have written the FT, you know, right? For each method we have to write a UT, for each line we have to cover an FT. So this is already tested and deployed in the live, and it is taking a traffic also, this code. Now some more requirement comes in. Let's say one of the classes, if use case 1 do this, else if use case 2 do this, like this, and it is in live. Now let's say in future one more feature come in. So are you going to, in the same class, are you going to do again else if use case 3 do this? Once you do this, you are increasing the chance of creating a bug in already tested class. First you have to write the UTs, right? For this newly added piece you have to write the unit test cases, you have to write the functional test cases. And it also possible that if you have already written 10 UTs before for this too, it might break those. So first of all we are touching the already tested code, right? So it increase the chance of creating a bug or break the existing functionality. This is the biggest challenge in the existing when you are working, right? You might already know, whenever we make a change we have to do a full testing that we should not break the existing functionality, right? So that is why the open clauses say that open for extension. Yeah, you should be able to extend it, but how? You should, it is closed for modification. If once you have written a class, you should not again for every feature you are touching it, no. So what this says, that create an interface, right? So create an interface here, and for each feature you can create a concrete classes, right? For this is feature 1, so tomorrow another feature come in, you have can write feature 2. So I have already tested it and deployed on traffic, right? So now again I have got a requirement tomorrow that feature 3 have to be built out, right? So our solid principle say that our code should be open for extension, right? So yes, it is open for extension. I can create one child class and here write feature 3. And also, is it falling closed for modification? Yes, I am not touching this, I am not touching this, I am only writing a new code. So I reduce the chance of breaking the already existing taking traffic, right? So this is what says that code at the interface level. So means we have to code on the interface. Any doubts, guys?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we are not basically extending it, right? Because when we create a new feature, then we have to again implement all the methods. So we are not using already implemented methods and all, right?
No, then you can create an abstract class, right? In the abstract class you can write a default methods. You can write the default methods, and if there are common, if you want to use the parent method or default method, you can use it, right? You don't have to implement it.
So like then every class need to have either abstract or interface.
Yeah, generally it's, you can say that even if you are using abstract, that is also extensible, and if you are using an interface, that is also extensible, but depending upon the requirement. So if your requirement is like you have to add a default functionality in the parent class, go for abstract. If you want to go for like, okay, I don't want I want all child to implement it, then go for interface.
Okay.
Any other questions, guys, with the open? Any doubts? What does this principle says? Shall I move ahead? Shall I move ahead? Okay. Okay, guys, feel free to ask or be little bit communicative. Okay, so I am going with the L part. If any doubt, please stop me. So L is nothing but a Liskov, right? Liskov substitution principle. Now what is Liskov substitution principle? जानते हो कि अब ये Liskov में क्या होता है? Then in this case, so from the name, this will click you that something related with substitute. Like today is I am receiving an object 1. If I substitute with object 2, it should not break. That's what Liskov says. Liskov says that today I have one code. I have one code that is so I have one interface. Let's say this is my interface, and this is a relationship, and this is child class 1, and I have another child class 2. Let's say I have this interface, and I have one more class which is using this code. Let's say today I have let's say this interface is I'm calling it a parent. So I have a code like parent object equals to new child 1. तो अभी मेरे पास किसका ऑब्जेक्ट है? चाइल्ड का. ठीक है. So Liskov substitution says that if you substitute this with another child, so if I change this code to new child 2, again this will be under parent object only, right? Parent object. It should not break the functionality, right? So after this object you might have some other piece of code which says like object dot get me get name, something like that. After that you have this code, right? So if you are substituting the child classes, your code should not break, right? So that's why it says that Liskov substitution. And also just understand from this, and also it says that if your parent has certain kind of functionality or capability, your child should not उसको बोलते हैं कि child उसको उस functionality और capability को हटाना नहीं चाहिए, right? So let's say you have a duck. I will say use the same example. So duck has the capability of flying. Duck has the capability of flying, right? So if I create a child class, let's say I create a mallard duck, which is nothing but a wild duck, it also has a fly capability, yes, right? Let's say if I have a so there is a duck called redneck duck, or that is also a type of duck. Doesn't matter, it also have a fly capability. Whether I use a mallard duck or redneck duck, flight capability is there. It is possible that a wild duck might be flying high, this might be flying low. Doesn't matter, changing in the behavior could be there of the fly nature, but the reason is they can fly. So let's say in my code today I am doing like, okay, whatever the duck object which I am getting, after that I am saying object dot fly something, I am doing this. So today if I replace this object with either mallard duck or create a new object with the redneck duck, doesn't matter, this will work, this code will not break. What if you create a here rubber duck? Can rubber duck fly? No. So you have to implement that throw exception, it cannot fly. Now what will happen to this code which is already, so if you replace what this substitution principle says that, so in this parent duck object I should be able to replace with any child, it should not break my code, right? Only the behavior nature of the fly could be different, nature of the operation could differ, right? But it should not reduce the capability. So duck has the capability to fly, you should not reduce the capability. So now this code will break, because now if I change with the new rubber duck, my code will say that object dot fly, and object dot fly it will throw exception. Earlier it was working, but as soon as you are extending and you put a new rubber duck and you have started throwing the exception, my code will break. So that's what Liskov says, that it should follow the substitution principle. Like if any operation, any capability parent has, you should not remove that capability from the child. You can only extend it, you can change it some manner, but you should not reduce it. You got it, right? What is Liskov substitution says that and how it says that. And it is very very important, because sometime in the code we know that okay, we are referring to duck object, I will always get this capability no matter. But if somebody in future add a code which says that okay and they are started throwing exception, so it might be different places of the code which has the agreement that okay, when I'm using a duck object I will get a fly capability. This is an agreement. That's why I haven't put not equals to null check or try catch block to catch it, right? But if somebody breaks the agreement and start reducing the capability, reducing the what we decided, that's what our code will break, and that's what Liskov substitution principle says, that you should not reduce the capability of the parent, you can only increase it. Any doubt with this, Liskov?
Sir, like if we want to implement the feature of a rubber duck, like do we need a separate interface which will be implemented by the duck? Like will
Yeah.
it be like that?
I will come with the interface segregation part. This is the next part, Nitish. So that's a good question, and it will get covered into the next part. I'll just jump into this after that. To answer your question, yes. How? I'll just update it. But anybody else has any doubt?
So if the parent class is like an interface, so then it will always follow this, right? Because we cannot even implement an interface without implementing its functions.
Correct. No, so yeah, that you are right. But understand this, like, okay, so even if you are creating a duck interface and you are exposing the fly, so you are coming with like, okay, I am going to add all the fly capabilities in it, right? So just go with that. Okay, in the other pieces of the code, I am not forcing them to put a null check there, right? So I will always expose this capability. So that's what Liskov says, that the client should be able to, so the other piece of codes are my client for this interface. So they should be interchangeably using my child classes, right? They will get different nature, but they will, at least they will get the functionality.
Okay.
Shall I move ahead, guys?
Yeah.
Okay, so Liskov, after that Liskov, I will come to the interface segmented, which Nitish has raised a concern, right? So how we gonna handle this use case? So now in which is called interface segregation. And this is the most confusing part also, right? I can tell you, this is the most confusing principle which Manny has. So now let's see. Here, I will say that duck example only, right? So now, what does interface segregation says? First definition. Its definition is, you should not force the concrete class, your child class, to implement the method, right? You should not force किसको? Child classes को. You should not force the child classes to implement the method, right? So now let's say duck has fly, swim, and quack method. So now I have, again I am taking the same example. With that I will clarify. I have a wild duck. So wild duck can fly, yes, it can have its method. It can swim, yes, it can have it can quack, yes, it can quack. So it has all the capabilities. I am not forcing it, right? Now you have something called pet duck. Pet duck also has all three methods applicable for it: fly, swim, quack, right? All three are applicable for this. Now here in this case, when I write a rubber duck can swim, yes, it can swim. Maybe it has some different capability to swim. Rubber duck can swim, but can it fly? No. So I am throwing an exception. So here if you see, I am forcing the rubber duck to implement this fly method, right? Can rubber duck can quack? No. I will throw exception here. Rubber duck cannot quack. So now in this case, rubber duck, I am forcing it for two methods. Can in future, any point of time, कभी भी क्या ये दो मेथड रबर डक इम्प्लीमेंट कर सकता है?
No.
नहीं, राइट? सो मीन्स चाहे कितने भी फ्यूचर में फीचर्स आ जाए, कितने भी मेरे को रिक्वायरमेंट आ जाए कि ये नया फीचर है, ये डाल दो, एट एनी पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम मैं कभी भी फ्लाई और क्वैक को जो है इम्प्लीमेंट नहीं कर पाऊंगा. सो मीन्स I have forced the rubber duck class to implement this method and it doesn't need it at any point of time. So this is violated the interface segregated principle. But सबसे ज़्यादा confusion कहाँ होती है समझना, right? So when you started working on interface segregation, right, many people say that this so let's say I will come up with one example as vending machine. I'm not sure how many of you have seen the vending machine LLD video. So in the vending machine video, I have, so vending machine के बहुत सारे operation होते हैं, right? So let's say insert coin, right? Pick the item, select item, right? So I'm just saying select item, and one more, let me pick that is something is refill. I'm just saying random, just let's say it has couple of vending machine operations. So the one, if you see the vending machine video, so here I have created an interface for different states, state 1, state 2, so there could be different state 3. So what does state means is, so let's say you haven't put the coin yet, so that is state 1, before coin, before inserting the coin. So in this, what operation can do? You can only do insert coin. Before inserting the coin, can you select the item? No. Can you refill it? No, nothing. Like, so only applicable method is insert coin. So it will insert coin, but it will throw error for select item. It will throw exception, right? So now similarly in select 2 or state 2, let's say after inserting coin, I can select only, right? I can select, so I can only implement this. But can I do a insert coin again? Let's say for example no, so I will throw exception. Similarly, so what I'm trying to say, in vending machine, for each state there are some operations which only is specific for that state, and we will implement that. For rest of the operation we will throw exception. So now it's a valid argument that is it violating interface segregation principle? You are forcing the child class, state 1 class, or before insert coin, you are forcing your child class to implement a method, right, by forcing throwing error, right? So here I am forcing a child class, I am forcing a rubber duck class to implement a method fly and quack, which they don't need. Similarly in the vending machine, I am forcing a child class, state 1 is before inserting the coin, to implement a method, let's say select item, which they don't need. It is throwing exception. It is violating, can anybody tell, is it violating interface segregation?
It is also contradicting with the Lisco substitution, right? How we should, there are two principles, right? In Lisco substitution, you said that all the objects should be substituted. If one object is doing fly, then other objects should work with the fly, right?
Right.
Yeah. But in this thing, it is not the same, right?
Correct. So yeah, that's what. So I'm coming to that one. So this is a very argumentative question. Like, first of all, is it violating Liskov? And is it violating interface segmented? Like, so to best of my knowledge, it's not. Why? Right? So what does principle says that? Interface segregation principle says that you should not force the child class to implement the method which it doesn't require, right? So now in this case, in the rubber duck, क्या फ्यूचर में कभी ये यूज हो सकता है क्या, फ्लाई और क्वैक? कभी नहीं हो सकता, राइट? लेकिन वेंडिंग मशीन के अंदर दीज आर ऑल वैलिड ऑपरेशंस, दीज आर ऑल वैलिड ऑपरेशंस ऑफ वेंडिंग मशीन, राइट? फ्यूचर में मैं क्या इसमें स्टेट 1 में इसको नेक्स्ट एक्शन को एनहांस कर सकता हूँ? वेरी वेरी मच पॉसिबल, राइट? वैलिड ऑपरेशन है ये वेंडिंग मशीन का. क्यों मैं इसको फ्यूचर में कुछ मैं कैपेबिलिटी एनहांस करूँ सच दैट इट स्टार्ट इम्प्लीमेंटिंग दिस मेथड? It is very different from rubber. See, it is similar with the duck interface, but it is very different in this use case. Rubber duck के अंदर fly और quack चाहे जितना मर्जी फीचर ले आओ ये कभी नहीं हो सकता, right? Because it's not a living being, it cannot fly, it cannot quack. But vending machine के अंदर जो मैंने 5 मेथड लिखे हैं, these are valid operation of a vending machine. But today because of my business logic, I am dividing it like this, like okay, during state 1 it is not implementing this method, during state 2 it is not implementing that method, because I am trying to add my business logic. But future it is very much possible that in the state 1 कि ये जो select है, ये इसको मैं select item है, इसको मैं allow कर दूँ यहाँ पे state 1 के अंदर. तो state 1 के अंदर आप insert coin भी करो plus select item भी करो, right? So now क्या मैं यहाँ पे हमेशा इसको फोर्स कर रहा हूँ, क्या आप ये इसके लिए एप्लीकेबल ही नहीं है? नहीं, अब तो इसके केस में एप्लीकेबल हो गया. सो नाउ इज इट वायलेटिंग इंटरफेस सेग्रीगेशन प्रिंसिपल? नो. सो यू जस्ट व्हाट आई एम ट्राइंग टू से इज दैट डेफिनेशन यही बोल रहा है कि दोनों में हम फोर्स कर रहे हैं, लेकिन एक बहुत माइनर सी थिन लाइन है कि अपन को समझना है कि चाइल्ड को अगर फ्यूचर के हिसाब से देखो, राइट, दिस इज वेंडिंग मशीन, राइट, फॉर दिस स्पेसिफिक प्रॉब्लम आज ये इस तरीके से रन हो रही है कि हाँ हम फोर्स कर रहे हैं, लेकिन क्या फ्यूचर में क्या मैं कोई कैपेबिलिटी डालूँ? तो आज इधर मेथड 1 है, यहाँ पे इम्प्लीमेंट कर रहा हूँ, मेथड 2 पे एरर कर रहा हूँ थ्रो. फ्यूचर में चांसेस हैं कि क्या मैं इस मेथड को इम्प्लीमेंट कर सकूँ? कर सकते हो, बिकॉज इट्स अ वैलिड ऑपरेशन ऑफ अ वेंडिंग मशीन, राइट. आप डेफिनेटली यू कैन ऐड दिस. टुडे ये यहाँ पे मैं एरर थ्रो कर रहा हूँ बिकॉज ऑफ माई बिजनेस नीड. बिजनेस नीड चेंज होती रहती है. अगर आपने आज कोड पुश किया, विद व्हाट हैपन नेक्स्ट डे नई बिजनेस नीड आ जाए कि नहीं यार हमें क्लाइंट मांग रहा है, फॉर दिस क्लाइंट वी हैव टू सपोर्ट द मेथड 2 फॉर दिस, यू गोइंग टू इम्प्लीमेंट दिस हेयर. नाउ विल इट वायलेट? नो, इट विल नॉट वायलेट. आई होप यू गेट द थिन लाइन, लाइक कहाँ पे वो थिन लाइन है कि कहाँ पे हम फोर्स कर रहे हैं. यहाँ पे रबर डक के अंदर हमने फोर्स कर दिया उसको कि फ्यूचर में चाहे तू 50 ऑपरेशन लिया, इन 2 के लिए तो वो हमेशा एरर थ्रो ही करना और तुम्हें इम्प्लीमेंट करना पड़ेगा. First, you understand like what is this definition meaning? Like anybody has doubt with this? Now we will see like how we can solve it.
So, but what when in one of your video, like you said that interface segmented principle, it should be such that like client should not implement unnecessary functions that they do not need. So it is a responsibility of interface or the extending classes, implementing classes.
Yeah, client. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So, like in this case, right? So the question still the definition is same. The whatever you said, right? I'm saying the same thing. We should not force the child class to implement the method which it doesn't need, right? So here rubber duck doesn't need fly and quack, but we have forced it. लेकिन यहाँ पे इस केस के अंदर स्टेट 3 को अभी आप बोल रहे हो कि डजंट नीड, लेकिन ये लेकिन वैलिड मेथड है, हम इसको इम्प्लीमेंट कर सकते हैं. नो, व्हाट आई एम सेइंग इज इट माइट बी ब्रेकिंग इंटरफेस सेग्रीगेशन, बट इट्स अ मैटर ऑफ डिस्कशन, लाइक कि यहाँ पे इस डेफिनेशन का मतलब आप किस तरीके से लेते हो. इन माई दैट्स व्हाट आई सेड, इन बेस्ट ऑफ माई नॉलेज दिस इज नॉट ब्रेकिंग द वेंडिंग मशीन, इज नॉट ब्रेकिंग द इंटरफेस सेग्रीगेशन प्रिंसिपल, बिकॉज कि यहाँ पे सारे वैलिड ऑपरेशन है. यहाँ पे मैंने कभी किसी को फोर्स नहीं किया, बिजनेस नीड को इम्प्लीमेंट किया. आई जस्ट इम्प्लीमेंटेड द बिजनेस नीड, आई नेवर फोर्स्ड इट. अगर मैं यहाँ पे एब्स्ट्रैक्ट क्लास के अंदर देखो, एब्स्ट्रैक्ट क्लास के अंदर अगर मैं वेंडिंग मशीन को इंटरफेस ना लेके एब्स्ट्रैक्ट क्लास ले लेता और यहाँ पे मैं लिख देता सारे ऑपरेशन 1, ऑपरेशन 2, ऑपरेशन 3, यहाँ पे मैं डिफ़ॉल्ट बिहेवियर डाल देता, जस्ट से डिफ़ॉल्ट बिहेवियर. अब यहाँ पे अब देखो स्टेट 1 को मान के चलो सारे डिफ़ॉल्ट बिहेवियर चाहिए, खाली ऑपरेशन 1 को इम्प्लीमेंट करना है, कर सकता है. बाकी उसको इम्प्लीमेंट करने की मैंने इसको फोर्स किया. डज आई फोर्स ऑपरेशन 2 एंड ऑपरेशन 3 टू डू इट? नो, डिफ़ॉल्ट बिहेवियर. अब चाहे डिफ़ॉल्ट बिहेवियर में एक्सेप्शन थ्रो करे, चाहे कुछ भी करे, बट आई एम नॉट फोर्सिंग माई चाइल्ड क्लास टू इम्प्लीमेंट दोज. सिमिलरली सेकेंड स्टेट, it is only interested in O2, operation 2, it can implement it, right? लेकिन अदर के लिए O1 वो डिफ़ॉल्ट बिहेवियर को यूज़ कर सकता है. हैव आई फोर्स हिम टू इम्प्लीमेंट डिफ़ॉल्ट थिंग? नहीं, करेक्ट. लेकिन डक के अंदर देखो, डक के अंदर अगर मैं एब्स्ट्रैक्ट क्लास लूँ तो फ्लाई इसका डिफ़ॉल्ट बिहेवियर क्या? येस यू कैन फ्लाई. क्वैक, येस यू कैन क्वैक, राइट. और मलाड डग वगैरह और पैट डग, it doesn't have to implement anything because they are, if they have a different behavior, yes fly, yes high fly, low fly, let's say altitude. but रबर डक को मैं हमेशा फोर्स करूँगा कि फ्लाई को इम्प्लीमेंट कर और थ्रो एक्सेप्शन कर, बिकॉज यू कैन नॉट फ्लाई. क्वैक को तुम इम्प्लीमेंट करो एंड यू कैन नॉट क्वैक. सो आई होप यू अंडरस्टैंड लाइक वेयर इज द थिन लाइन. यहाँ पे मैं डिफॉल्ट बिहेवियर इम्प्लीमेंट कर सकता हूँ और सारे स्टेट्स खाली अपना अपना ऑपरेशन इम्प्लीमेंट करेंगे. दे शुड नॉट इम्प्लीमेंट अदर मेथड. आई एम नॉट फोर्सिंग इट. यहाँ पे मुझे इसलिए इम्प्लीमेंट करना पड़ा, यहाँ पे मैंने इंटरफेस लिया है. अगर मैं यहाँ पे एब्स्ट्रैक्ट ले लेता तो वो शायद और क्लैरिटी हो जाती कि आई एम नॉट फोर्सिंग इट. ठीक है.
ओके ओके. सो लाइक अगर इम्पॉसिबल है करना लाइक तो हम लोग तो फिर वो लिस्कॉफ में आ जाएगा, राइट?
लिस्कॉफ में आ जाएगा.
लाइक उसमें कोई पॉसिबिलिटी नहीं है वो मेथड उसमें रन होने के बाद और डक हो.
ना इट विल गो विद द डिफॉल्ट वैल्यू, राइट. हाँ, ये बोलो कि यार वो एक्सेप्शन थ्रो हो सकता है. सो नाउ इन सी दिस इज द एग्रीमेंट. नाउ इन द एब्स्ट्रैक्ट क्लास दिस इज द एग्रीमेंट. डिफॉल्ट बिहेवियर इज द एग्रीमेंट. ठीक है. कोई भी अब मेरा चाइल्ड, इट इज नॉट ब्रेकिंग लिस्कॉफ ऑल्सो, लाइक लेट्स से दिस इज अनदर क्लास. टुडे इट इज हैविंग स्टेट वन ऑब्जेक्ट. दिस इज एब्स्ट्रैक्ट क्लास ऑब्जेक्ट, राइट. सो टुडे इसके पास किसका ऑब्जेक्ट है? S1 का. तो ये S1 का मान के चलो अभी O1 ऑपरेशन 1 यूज़ कर रहा है, इट विल वर्क. ऑपरेशन 2 यूज़ कर रहा है तो ये डिफ़ॉल्ट यूज़ करेगा. ऑपरेशन 3 यूज़ कर रहा है, डिफ़ॉल्ट यूज़ करेगा. लेट्स से आई एम स्विचिंग विद S1 टू S2 ऑब्जेक्ट. तो S2 का जब ये ऑपरेशन 1 कॉल करेगा तो नाउ डिफ़ॉल्ट. ऑपरेशन 2 कॉल करेगा तो ये इसका स्पेसिफिक. तो इट विल नॉट ब्रेक एनीथिंग. अगर वो इम्प्लीमेंट नहीं कर रहा तो उसको डिफ़ॉल्ट तो मिलेगा ही, जो पेरेंट क्लास ने बनाया है अपना, कि दिस इज द डिफॉल्ट बिहेवियर आई एम थ्रोइंग.
ओके ओके.
लेकिन रबर केस में नहीं है. रबर केस में मैंने डिफॉल्ट क्या बोला कि डक कैन फ्लाई. सो एवरीबडी नोज दैट यस डक कैन फ्लाई. तो वॉट एवर ऑब्जेक्ट विल गेट आई कैन डू फ्लाई. लेकिन जब तक मेरे पास मलाड डक आया इट कैन फ्लाई, यस. जब तक मेरे पास रेड नेक डक आया इट कैन फ्लाई, यस. जैसे मैंने रबर डक डाल दिया, कैन इट फ्लाई? नो. सो बहुत पतली सी लाइन है. अगर समझ आ गया हो तो वी कैन डिस्कस मोर. अगर कोई डाउट हो तो वी कैन डिस्कस मोर ऑन दिस. अगर समझ आया तो आई विल टेल कि इस प्रॉब्लम को कैसे सॉल्व करते हैं. लेट मी नो गाइस इफ आई कैन प्रोसीड फर्दर.
या गो अहेड.
ठीक है. सो इंटरफेस सेग्रीगेशन को आपको पता चल गया कि कब इंटरफेस सेग्रीगेशन का हमें अप्लाई करना है. तो अब मुझे पता चल गया कि रबर वाला डक जो है इट इज़ ब्रेकिंग द इंटरफेस सेग्रीगेशन. सो हाउ वी कैन सॉल्व इट? सो वी कैन सॉल्व लाइक ओके डक. We can create one more interface, let's say real duck, and we can create one more duck, say that fake duck something. अब यहाँ के इसके नीचे आप implement कर लो मलाड डक और वाइल्ड डक, पेट डक, और जो भी करोगे तो इसका अब क्या है कि दिस ऑल कैन फ्लाई. और जिनको भी अपना डिफ़ॉल्ट बिहेवियर यूज़ करना है डिफ़ॉल्ट बिहेवियर यूज़ करे, जिसको बिहेवियर चेंज करना है वो बिहेवियर चेंज करे. बट एटलीस्ट दे विल ऑल कि एटलीस्ट उड़ेंगे, क्वैक करेंगे. और फेक के अंदर अब मुझे फ्लाई और क्वैक का तो मतलब ही नहीं है. अब मुझे पता है कि हाँ स्विम कर सकता है, ठीक है. और अगर कुछ और कैपेबिलिटी है डक की, डू नॉट ब्रेक और डू नॉट ब्रीथ, समथिंग, सम मेथड. तो आई होप यू गॉट इट, राइट. वी कैन डिवाइड. सो दैट्स व्हाट इज कॉल्ड इंटरफेस सेग्रीगेशन. हमने एक बड़े इंटरफेस को सेग्रीगेट कर दिया स्पेसिफिकली, और उसके जो जो मेथड मेरे को चाहिए खाली वो मेथड मैंने उसके अंदर रखे हैं जो चाइल्ड क्लास के मतलब को हों.
So if someone calls fake duck के लिए कोई fly call करता है,
हाँ.
तो it will not find the function, right? So how to handle that? Like, because we can always replace the object, right?
यू कैन, या करेक्ट. तो नहीं मैं लेकिन फेक डक के अंदर फ्लाई रखूंगा ही नहीं. सो नाउ आई हैव टू इंटरफेस. मैंने जो बड़ा डक इंटरफेस था उसको दो में डिवाइड कर दिया, राइट. सो अब जिसको रियल डक पे वर्क करना है वो रियल डक पे वर्क करे. रियल डक विल ऑलवेज हैव फ्लाई. मुझे फेक डक में मैंने बोल रहा हूँ कि फेक डक में फ्लाई रखा, लेकिन इसका मैंने डिफ़ॉल्ट बिहेवियर का रखा नो, इट कैन नॉट फ्लाई. ठीक है. तो अब या फिर थ्रो एक्सेप्शन, कुछ भी.
Maybe do nothing.
Do nothing, yeah, anything. Do nothing, no, और exception default behavior की जो है ही नहीं. ठीक है. Now if anybody client is using fake duck interface, they know what they should expect from it. Now I am not forcing my child classes to implement the fly method and say that throw exception. It has the default behavior. Got it, guys? इंटरफेस सेग्रीगेशन क्या बोलता है और बहुत कंफ्यूजिंग है। तो जब भी कोई आप देखो कि एक चाइल्ड क्लास एक्सेप्शन थ्रो कर रहा है, डोंट जंप कि ये ब्रेक कर दिया। सो ऑलवेज ट्राई टू अंडरस्टैंड दैट क्या फ्यूचर में एक्सटेंसिबल है, क्या ऑल मेथड वैलिड है क्या सारे चाइल्ड्स के लिए। दैट इज वन काइंड ऑफ यू कैन से हिंट टू आइडेंटिफाई इट इज ब्रेकिंग इंटरफेस सेग्रीगेशन और नॉट।
Hello.
हाँ या
So, can we say that the interface segregation is a solution for the class which is violating the Liskov principle? Like in here example, our duck is violating the Liskov principle, so we like segregated in the different interface.
kind of, yeah, in this example actually it's a solution. So but
Okay.
there could be some use case, it could not be a solution interface segregation. लेकिन ये मलाड डक और ये डक इंटरफेस वाले में that is the solution actually. We solve the Liskov issue. और guys आज का लास्ट डिपेंडेंसी इन्वर्जन। मैं बढ़ूँ रुकूँ, एनी डाउट?
No.
ओके अब आज का आखिरी टॉपिक, सो इट्स ऑलरेडी 1 आवर। सो डिपेंडेंसी इन्वर्जन, ठीक है। डिपेंडेंसी इन्वर्जन समझना बहुत, ये तो बहुत ही इंपॉर्टेंट है, काइंड ऑफ वी लाइक हर जगह यूज़ करोगे आप कंपनी में। देखो एक डिपेंडेंसी इन्वर्जन को समझना, मेरे पास एक कीबोर्ड, कीबोर्ड कितने तरीके के हो सकते हैं?
Maybe normal
Wireless
mechanical,
keyboard.
wireless.
Or we can say that with wire keyboard, or you can also say that some different type of keyboard, let's say I am just taking an example, gaming keyboard which has some other functionality also, right? Gaming has some more features, some extra buttons and extra, so let's say but we have a different type of keyboards, ठीक है। और मेरे पास एक है कंप्यूटर क्लास, computer class, so no, not computer class, so computer has keyboard, correct? So in this case you can say that ki I have a keyboard object and it has computer has a keyboard। अगर मैं कंप्यूटर क्लास के अंदर इसको मैं एक तो फर्स्ट हार्ड कोड कर दूं कि अगर मान के चलो मैं कंप्यूटर बना रहा हूँ और मैंने उसमें कर दिया कि न्यू विथ वायर ऑब्जेक्ट, विथ वायर कीबोर्ड, ये मैंने कर दिया इसको। क्या ये फ्यूचर में एक्सटेंसिबल है, स्केलेबल है? नहीं है। अगर फ्यूचर में मेरे को अब अपने कंप्यूटर को विथ वायर से वायरलेस कीबोर्ड पे एडअप करना है, क्या मैं कर सकता हूँ? नहीं, क्योंकि तुमने तो हार्ड कोड ही कर दिया, राइट? तो पहला डिपेंडेंसी इन्वर्जन में क्या बोलता है कि इस ऑब्जेक्ट के अंदर आप कंस्ट्रक्टर से पूछो कि क्या, मतलब इसका मैंने कंप्यूटर क्लास का एक कंस्ट्रक्टर बनाया और उसके अंदर कीबोर्ड का एक ऑब्जेक्ट आया, ठीक है। अब ये इस ऑब्जेक्ट को दिस डॉट ओबीजे, ये वाला ओबीजे जो भी मेरे पास कंस्ट्रक्टर में पैरामीटर में आ रहा है, ठीक है। अब मान के चलो कि एक चाइल्ड क्लास है कंप्यूटर की, ये चाइल्ड क्लास 1 है, चाइल्ड क्लास 2 है। तो ये चाइल्ड क्लास 1 पास कर रही है अपने इसमें, तो C1 का जो कंस्ट्रक्टर है ये अपने पेरेंट को कॉल कर रहा है सुपर, कि मेरे को जो कंप्यूटर मैं बना रहा हूँ, तो ये तो अब मैंने एक तरीके से डिफ़ॉल्ट क्लास बना दी पेरेंट क्लास कंप्यूटर की, ठीक है। अब मान के चलो ये मेरा चाइल्ड क्लास में मैं एक्चुअली का कंप्यूटर बना रहा हूँ, मान के चलो। सो नाउ इन दिस कंप्यूटर क्लास आई वांट टुडे विथ वायर कीबोर्ड, तो यहाँ पे मैं सुपर में क्या कर दूंगा, पास कीबोर्ड। यहाँ पे तो पेरेंट इंटरफेस का ऑब्जेक्ट है, तो मैं कोई सा भी पास कर सकता हूँ। नाउ यू सी कि मैं ये भी पास करता हूँ, ये भी पास कर सकता हूँ, ये भी पास कर सकता हूँ। टुडे लेट्स से आई एम पासिंग दिस, तो मैं विथ वायर कीबोर्ड का ऑब्जेक्ट सेंड कर रहा हूँ। तो ये वाला मेरा ऑब्जेक्ट अब क्या होल्ड कर रहा है, विथ वायर 1। फ्यूचर में मान के चलो मुझे चेंज करना है, तो मैं यहीं पे चेंज कर सकता हूँ। ये ऑब्जेक्ट डायनामिकली कुछ भी रख सकता है जो भी मुझे चाइल्ड भेजेगा, ठीक है। दिस क्लास इज अनटचेबल एंड दिस इज स्केलेबल। पहला कंप्यूटर बना रहा हो, ठीक है, स्केलेबल है। दूसरा कंप्यूटर बना रहा हो तो वो बोल रहा है कि मुझे सुपर में पास करो वायरलेस 1, तो यहाँ पे वायरलेस का ऑब्जेक्ट सेंड कर दो, तो वायरलेस का ऑब्जेक्ट आके अपने ऑब्जेक्ट में वायरलेस का सेट कर देगा। अब जो भी ऑपरेशन परफॉर्म करेगा ये वायरलेस वाले यहाँ पे यूज़ करेगा. सो दिस इज नोन एज डिपेंडेंसी इन्वर्जन कि ऑलवेज डोंट हार्ड कोड कि यहाँ पे आप कौन सा ऑब्जेक्ट कर रहे हो. सो ऑलवेज रीड इट फ्रॉम द कंस्ट्रक्टर. कंस्ट्रक्टर में जो ऑब्जेक्ट है उससे वो अपने चाइल्ड से पूछो कि आपको कौन सा ऑब्जेक्ट सेट करना है इसके अंदर. डिफरेंट, अगर मेरे पास डिफरेंट टाइप्स हैं तो और ठीक है और इट हैज़ अ रिलेशनशिप, तो मेरे को यहाँ पे हैज़ में इसको हार्ड कोडेड नहीं करना है कि ओके इट हैज़ दिस. इसको मुझे डायनामिकली अपने चाइल्ड को बताने देना है कि विच वन यू वांट. सो चाइल्ड विल गाइड इट्स पेरेंट क्लास दैट ओके आई वांट दिस क्लास ऑब्जेक्ट. क्लास चाइल्ड 2 क्या बोलेगा, ओके आई वांट गेमिंग कीबोर्ड. ठीक है. सो द पेरेंट क्लास विल ऑटोमेटिकली सेट दिस वन in reference and start so its method would be very much generic. so इसका मेथड क्या होगा, लेट्स से ob.type. ठीक है, यहाँ पे भी टाइप मेथड है, इधर भी टाइप मेथड है, इधर भी टाइप मेथड है. कीबोर्ड के अंदर तीनों के अंदर टाइप मेथड है. लेट्स से अब पेरेंट क्लास के अंदर एक क्लास मेथड था टाइपिंग करके, लेट्स से एक मेथड था, उसने तो बस किया ob.type. पेरेंट क्लास को तो पता भी नहीं कि ये ob किसका है, वायरलेस का है, गेमर का है या विथ वायर का है. तो ये मेरे को चाइल्ड गाइड कर रहे हैं कि वो कौन सा ऑब्जेक्ट रख रहे हैं. एंड पेरेंट कोड इज़ वेरी मच जेनरिक. ठीक है, तो इससे हम क्या करते हैं कि डिपेंडेंसी इन्वर्जन हेल्प अस टू स्केल द लाइक स्केलेबिलिटी को हैंडल करने में बहुत अच्छे से मदद करता है, राइट, विदाउट इवन चेंजिंग मच कोड. डिपेंडेंसी इन्वर्जन समझ आया गाइस, हाउ वी टेक केयर ऑफ डिपेंडेंस. इसको बोलते हैं डिपेंडेंसी इन्वर्जन वेयर चाइल्ड गाइड टू द पेरेंट which object they wanted, right, and the generic method has been used किया, डॉट टाइप यूज़ कर दिया. यहाँ पे मैंने वायरलेस कीबोर्ड डॉट टाइप नहीं किया, हार्ड कोडेड नहीं किया.
So basically, feature is not dependent on super. It will come from the child.
It will come from the child, yeah. चाइल्ड गाइड करेंगे. और अगर आप फ्यूचर में आप देखोगे ना, अभी स्ट्रैटेजी पैटर्न लर्न करोगे, स्ट्रैटेजी पैटर्न इज वेरी मच इज द सेम थिंग. Dependency inversion is very much similar to strategy design pattern. I'll not tell now, like we can make it in another session, but this is itself is a kind of you can say it's a very similar design pattern with a strategy. तो यहाँ पे चाइल्ड गाइड कर रहे हैं कि कौन सा ऑब्जेक्ट रखना है. ठीक है, और यहाँ पे ऑलवेज कोड टू द इंटरफेस, नेवर कोड इन द पेरेंट क्लास दैट वायरलेस कीबोर्ड इक्वल्स टू न्यू वायरलेस कीबोर्ड. डोंट हार्ड कोड इट. ऑलवेज हैव अ डिपेंडेंसी इन्वर्जन. इन्वर्जन मीन्स उल्टा यहाँ से आ रहा है मेरे पास चाइल्ड से, कौन सी डिपेंडेंसी मेरे को रखनी है. और इसी के साथ हमारा सॉलिड होता है ख़त्म. एनी डाउट, एनी डाउट गाइस?
No doubt, sir. No doubt.
ओके देन गुड नाइट. और कोई भी ज़रूरत हो कि मतलब लिंक्डइन पे और पिंग कर सकते हो गाइस. आई डोंट नो यू आर ऑन टेलीग्राम और नॉट, लेकिन लिंक्डइन पे भी कर दोगे तो आई एम मोस्टली एक्टिव. एंड इफ़ यू हैव एनी डाउट फील फ्री टू पिंग मी मैंने एनी टाइम.
Hello. Can we ask you career-related questions?
हाँ या सो.
So, like, I have 4 years of experience.
Shall I stop the recording, Tushar?
Yeah, it's up to you.
Yeah, I'll stop the recording for now.